Street Journal, when Mike Wirth, the CEO of Chevron, was getting ready to move Chevron out of California, texted him and said, "We're about to make this announcement. I'd like to tell you before you read about it." Gavin Newsom replied, essentially, quote, "I don't need to talk about it. I'm good."
In California are winding down their operations. Phillips 66 in Los Angeles County is set to shut down completely in a few weeks, and Valero in the Bay Area will stop operations in April.
On October 16th, 2024, nearly 900 refinery workers opened an email that changed everything. In a single moment, steady, high-paying careers that had supported families and neighborhoods for decades were suddenly coming to an end. Just days earlier, California's governor had approved sweeping new refinery regulations, setting off intense discussion across the industry. 6 months later, another major announcement followed. Valero confirmed it would shut down operations as well, affecting nearly 800 additional positions. Altogether, about 1,700 roles were set to disappear, sending shockwaves through local economies and leaving entire communities facing deep uncertainty.
Who works 3 different jobs just to make ends meet, and then having to pay, almost $100 to fill up her gas tank. It's demoralizing. It's awful.
I have to start budgeting myself just for gas, and that's to get to work to make more money. So it just all in all makes everything a lot more difficult for me and my entire family.
Behind corporate press releases and political talking points was a quieter reality. The everyday people now forced to rethink their futures. The turning point began when Phillips 66 executives gathered reporters on October 16, 2024. They confirmed the permanent closure of the Los Angeles Refinery Complex, a facility capable of processing nearly 140,000 barrels per day. For Southern California, it wasn't just an industrial site. It was a long-standing pillar of the regional economy. The timing raised eyebrows.
We begin in Benicia, where the Valero refinery is beginning to shut down operations. The refinery accounts for nearly a tenth of California's crude oil capacity and employs 400 workers.
This comes just weeks after California lost Phillips 66, a refinery in the Los Angeles area.
The announcement came just 2 days after Governor Newsom signed major refinery regulations. Still, CEO Mark Lashier maintained the decision was not tied to the new rules. Instead, he cited what he described as long-term sustainability challenges and shifting market conditions that had gradually weakened the business outlook for refining in the state. For the 900 employees at the facility, the timeline was clear. Operations were scheduled to end by September 2025, meaning the countdown had officially begun. Then, on April 16, 2025, Valero Energy issued its own statement confirming plans to close its Benicia refinery, a plant with a daily capacity of 145,000 barrels.
The company began idling operations in October and then shut down in December.
This shutdown may soon burn a hole in your wallet. A study by USC's Marshall School of Business found gas prices could rise to nearly $8 by the end of the year as a result.
Yeah, the study blames the 2 refinery closures for the price hike. Don Lynn has more on the economic impact in Benicia.
The industry landscape in California was changing fast, and the impact was undeniable. Valero later confirmed that its Wilmington facility would also close, marking a complete exit from California's refining sector. The company reported a $1.1 billion impairment charge connected to the decision, highlighting the financial weight of the move. CEO Lane Riggs described California as one of the most complex and highly regulated energy markets in North America, signaling just how challenging operations had become. By spring 2026, roughly 790 additional positions would be phased out. Combined, the Phillips 66 and Valero closures account for nearly 1,700 direct refinery jobs and remove close to 20% of the state's refining capacity. The announcements followed a familiar corporate pattern: structured press releases, investor calls, and carefully prepared statements. On paper, it was business strategy. In reality, it was a turning point for thousands of working households. For many employees, this shift wasn't about industry forecasts or regulatory debates. It was about stability disappearing almost overnight. The shutdowns represent more than facility closures. They signal a transformation of California's industrial landscape and raise serious questions about what comes next for the regions built around these operations. Alfredo Cruz, who spent 15 years working as a pipe fitter, is one of those directly affected. His annual earnings had reached $118,000, a level that once offered long-term financial confidence. Now he faces the uncertainty of what lies ahead. For him, the announcement wasn't just a headline, it reshaped the future he had carefully planned. He is far from alone. Operators, electricians, mechanics, and support staff across multiple facilities are preparing for similar transitions. What once felt dependable now feels fragile, and entire communities are adjusting to a rapidly changing energy economy. Many of the refinery employees built solid careers with only a high school diploma, earning wages that often matched or even exceeded those of college graduates. Among them is Lori Wallace, who operated process units for more than a decade. In April 2025, as news of the shutdown spread, she was also dealing with a serious health diagnosis. The overlap of personal health concerns and sudden job uncertainty created an overwhelming moment in her life. For Wallace, the position represented more than income. It provided health coverage, daily structure, and a network of co-workers she relied on. Now, she must manage medical treatment while also planning for a career transition. Her experience reflects a broader pattern unfolding across the workforce, where professional stability and personal challenges are colliding at the same time. By late summer, nearly a quarter of union employees had already moved on, either seeking opportunities in other states or choosing early retirement. Those who stayed reported demanding schedules, sometimes working 13 consecutive days with only one day off, as companies work to maintain operations with reduced staffing. The pressure inside these facilities grew as teams grew smaller. This situation is not entirely new. In October 2020, Marathon Petroleum closed its Martinez refinery, affecting more than 720 workers. A year later, a UC Berkeley Labor Center study examined the aftermath. It found that many former employees who secured new jobs experienced a noticeable drop in earnings, with median hourly pay falling from about $50 to $38. Even more concerning, roughly 1 in 4 remained without employment after a full year. These figures offer important context for those now facing similar transitions. The impact extends beyond payroll numbers. It reshapes career paths, financial plans, and the identity of entire refinery communities across California. California's refinery landscape reveals a steady decline over decades. In 1983, about 40 refineries operated across the state, supporting a strong industrial base. By the early 2000s, that number had dropped to 23. As of January 2024, only 14 remained active, and projections indicate the total could fall to 11 by 2026. Most of the remaining facilities are expected to be smaller in scale, with only a handful capable of producing large volumes of transportation fuel. The planned closures of Phillips 66 and Valero alone are projected to reduce statewide refining capacity by an estimated 17 to 21%. For a state that once ranked among the nation's leaders in fuel production, this marks a significant shift. The change is measured not only in output but in long-term economic impact. Contra Costa County, which hosts several major refining operations, could see an estimated $136 million annual reduction in direct tax revenue. Broader supply chain adjustments may place an additional $836 million in yearly tax receipts at risk. These funds play a role in supporting public services, infrastructure projects, and community programs. As refinery activity declines, the financial ripple effects are expected to reach construction firms, transportation providers, contractors, and local businesses connected to the industry. Fuel prices are another area drawing attention. California drivers already pay approximately $1.40 to $1.60 more per gallon than the national average. Some market analysts suggest that tighter in-state supply could place additional upward pressure on prices, with estimates ranging from 50 cents to as much as $2 per gallon over time. Longer-term projections vary, but certain forecasts indicate that gasoline prices could trend toward the $6 to $8 range in the coming years if supply constraints persist. The numbers highlight a broader transition underway, one that carries economic, industrial, and consumer implications across the state. California's geographic setup adds another layer of complexity. The state operates largely independently from major fuel pipeline networks that connect other regions of the country. As a result, it relies heavily on marine shipments for both crude oil and refined products. In May 2025, West Coast fuel imports climbed above 210,000 barrels per day, a record level that analysts say could become more common if local production continues to decline. These figures highlight a larger shift: reduced in-state refining, changing tax flows, and increasing dependence on outside supply. As more facilities wind down operations, economic pressure builds on local governments, businesses, and consumers. The central question becomes how the financial impact will be distributed as the industry footprint shrinks further. Another major development came on August 2, 2024, when Chevron announced plans to relocate its global headquarters out of California. The decision followed reported outreach from CEO Mike Wirth to Governor Gavin Newsom ahead of the public statement. According to media coverage at the time, the governor indicated there was no meeting scheduled in Texas. Soon after, Texas Governor Greg Abbott publicly welcomed the company, expressing interest in supporting its transition to Houston. His message emphasized that state officials were open to discussing how to facilitate the move. Chevron's relocation represents more than a change of address. For decades, California served as a central hub for major energy companies. The departure signals a broader transformation in where industry leadership and corporate investment are choosing to concentrate. As headquarters shift and refining capacity narrows, the long-term identity of California's energy sector continues to evolve. By 2026, just 3 companies, Chevron, PBF Energy, and Marathon Petroleum, are projected to control more than 90% of California's gasoline refining capacity. The era of broad competition, when numerous firms supplied fuel across the West Coast, has narrowed significantly. Industry consolidation is moving at a pace not seen in years, concentrating production among a small group of operators and reshaping the state's energy marketplace. Observers have pointed to communication gaps between state leadership and major employers as part of the broader discussion. Public reporting highlighted an unanswered outreach attempt ahead of one company's relocation decision, which some analysts interpret as symbolic of a more distant relationship between policymakers and large industrial firms. In contrast, other states have publicly emphasized direct engagement and incentive-based recruitment strategies. Supporters of California's regulatory direction argued the state is prioritizing long-term environmental and economic goals. Critics, however, question whether the current climate makes expansion or retention more difficult for established energy companies. The differing perspectives reflect a deeper debate about how the state balances industry regulation and economic transition. As headquarters shift and refining capacity contracts, workers and local communities face significant adjustments. Rising fuel costs, evolving supply chains, and changing tax revenues all add to the uncertainty. The state now finds itself at a defining moment, navigating energy affordability, market concentration, and long-term planning all at once. The path forward will shape employment patterns, consumer costs, and the structure of California's industrial base for years to come. The direction chosen today will carry lasting consequences for the state's economic future.